There we go. Okay, so you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So you want to introduce
Hey,
me?
this is July or August 1st, 2020, and I'm sitting here with Ron Solomon. He's the president of the MAGA Mall. He produces all kinds of Trump merchandise and gets it out to us county parties, people like me, and we engage our voters with his product. Ron, thank you for coming through Amarillo today and sitting down and visiting.
Well, it's a pleasure sitting down with you again. Dan, what we do is we make the finest quality Trump headgear there is, Trump and MAGA headgear. They're all made out of premium cotton twill. Everything on them is embroidered. About a few years ago, when I decided to back then candidate Trump in May of 2016, I realized that there weren't any really great products out there. As a matter of fact, a lot of things that you purchased on the internet were junk. So what I decided to do is make the finest quality Trump headgear, and it expanded to other products as well. We supply face masks, T-shirts, banners, anything imaginable. And when the business started to expand, I went to state and county Republican parties all across the United States and showed them the products. Now we have a line of 80 different Trump caps, 15 different Trump visors. We have 10 different Trump cowboy hats, some state specific, as well as T-shirts and other items. And what it's been able to do is engage the voters, getting people coming to purchase them and from the state and county parties in the form of a donation in return for which they would get a product. And also from that, not only are the parties making more money than they ever dreamed of, but also they're getting potential future donors as well as volunteers to knock on the doors. And when a volunteer knocks on the door and they wear a Trump hat, the voter is immediately brought in. They like the president, and they see you're supporting the president, and they want to talk to you. And we're able to engage many more voters than we would have normally had.
Well, that's interesting. So, how many different states do you deal with?
We deal coast to coast, approximately state and county parties and retailers in about 40 different states right now.
How many in Texas?
In Texas, I would say combined about 25 county parties as well as retailers in Texas. Everywhere.
So, what do you think is going on with the election? Do you think people are being engaged by this, or do you think Biden's going to win and this is all just a joke?
Well, what's interesting to me is I find when I'm out there, because obviously I go all over the United States speaking with county chairs and local parties, is that people are engaged, but they're just not out there. What I think the tactic of the other side is to clamp down on as many people as possible voicing their opinion, because I think they realized in the last election cycle that that's one of the reasons why they lost. And one of them was the president's genius idea of having these Make America Great Again hats. All of a sudden, people realized out there that there were other people just besides me that thought this way, that the United States was going down the wrong avenue with these socialist ideas, and that it was a time for a change. And I think that the tactic of the Democrat Party at this point is to shut down free speech, is to shut down our right to assemble and work with each other. And because the Democrats realize that like-minded people who have common sense is a big danger to them. Their main tactic is to divide and conquer by putting people into little subsets. And the bottom line is we're all Americans, and we're all bound by one thing: the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. And that gives us the wherewithal to prosper in the greatest experiment ever launched in mankind. And on the other side, the Democrats have turned so far to the left that they've abandoned our founding documents, or now are attacking our founding fathers. Because their main objective, I believe, and it's being brought out right now by what's going on across the United States, is to attack the founding documents and turn us into a socialist state. What's interesting about all of this is if you look back over the last 60 years, the Democrats, any place, any locality, any precinct, any community that they've taken control over, which were once beautiful middle-class neighborhoods with doors wide open, with car keys in the ignitions, with children on tricycles playing in the streets, they have turned these places into crime, drug, and poverty-ridden slums with failing school districts. And now what we're seeing during this COVID pandemic is like a fast forward of what they've been doing. They are allowing mayhem in the streets. They are allowing businesses to be destroyed. They are allowing buildings to be burned, courthouses attacked, statues destroyed. So if you really think about that, they complain that in minorities have a higher unemployment rate than do white Americans. Well, the bottom line is, last time I looked, a business that's been looted or has been burnt down, it's very hard for them to employ people. And unfortunately, a lot of minorities that have been targeted with these socialist principles that the Democrats have used in the last 60 years have slowly but surely destroyed all the businesses. Now they don't care if businesses are directly destroyed, not through regulations, not through taxations, but through looting and through arson. And so the bottom line is, if you want America to be turned into a total disaster, where it's impossible to get a job, where it's impossible to start a business, where it's impossible to raise your family, where it's possible to get a good education, look at what the Democrats have done, not only the last 60 years, but look at what they're doing today. What we're seeing is a fast forward of what they've done to American inner cities, communities, all across the United States over the last several decades.
Well, you say the Democrats have done it, but haven't the Republicans kind of helped them out?
Well, in essence, we have Republicans that, by being silent, have in essence allowed that, or they've compromised, which is general suicide, and that's a big mistake. That's why we have to stand with our principles and turn to the Constitution as far as freedom is concerned, and our rights, and stick by those. And we can't allow mayhem and to take over the United States, and law and anti-law, like the whole thing with attacking police officers. If you really think about this, they say that the police departments, there's systemic racism. Well, and they allege that. So we have these different occurrences. One obviously up in Minnesota, that was a terrible thing that happened, and that was an example of a police officer who was a sadistic fiend in my point of view. But when they start pointing to all these other racist things that are happening, most of them it's based on a false premise. And number two, what's even more important, all these alleged racist police departments happen to be in districts and in communities and in cities that have been controlled by Democrats for decades. So what are they talking about? Minneapolis, as an example. Mayor, city council, the sheriff, the police chief is picked by the mayor, totally controlled by liberals and leftists for 60 years. Atlanta, the same thing. St. Louis, the same thing. So why is it that all of these places are allegedly racist but have been controlled by them for years? And what the Democrats' solution is more government. But they've created incredible sized government, and it doesn't seem to be working. So the main question for the American voter is this the path you want to go down to, where the last thing that's left that establishes any type of law and order and continuity is the police department. They've already destroyed the businesses. They've already destroyed the schools. They've already destroyed the families. Now they're coming after the police department. In other words, the police is a scapegoat for them to gin up during another election cycle voters that they've targeted and they've already destroyed their lives. It just recurs every 2 years, the same thing every 2 years, in and out.
Very, very intriguing, Ron. Well, we have, the situation we have, and we kind of had a discussion with the state chairman. I'm not going to go into it because I was told not to by people that are smarter than I am, but it's about messaging. And the Republican Party, do they understand how to message properly?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, the thing is, what really bothers me is that number one, they've taken over the education system, the left, so that people growing up don't really know what the Democrat Party is all it is. Well, people who have gotten a good education know that the Democrat Party was the party of slavery, and the Republican Party was formed to abolish slavery. The Democrat Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan, Jim Crow, and now what is the Democrat Party? And they stopped there. As I said earlier, what has happened is the Democrats have targeted minorities and have told them that big government is the way to go. And by doing so, what have they done? They've eradicated all opportunities for people in these communities that they've targeted. And what has happened in these communities again? They've raised taxes, drove out business, raised regulations, more businesses left. They destroyed the school systems. So that meant that people who wanted to get an entry-level job or regular job weren't qualified because their education was terrible. And so in essence, what they've done is it's another type of slavery in control. By taking away people's opportunity, it's the same as slavery because they destroyed your freedom. Now they've destroyed your freedom to succeed in a country that has a constitution and that is supposed to make it so everybody has an equal opportunity to succeed. But in Democrat districts, that doesn't happen because they destroy people's opportunities by robbing them of their futures, by taking away their opportunities and only allowing them to go to failing schools, which they, over the last several decades, have destroyed.
Very interesting. So it's about opportunity.
That is correct.
So everybody has the same opportunity.
Unless, of course, you voted for Democrats and they've taken over your district. So you have, like Detroit. The last time Detroit had a Republican mayor was in 1962. In 1960, Detroit had the highest per capita income of any city in the United States. Now, after total Democrat domination for 6 decades, it has the lowest per capita income, and it's been turned into a slum. And why? Because they kept on raising taxes. They kept on regulating businesses. They destroyed school districts. And so it took away everybody's opportunity. Then the last tax to raise, and this is very interesting, is after they've destroyed work, they've destroyed your disposable income so that they don't so they can't bring any income taxes in, and they can't bring any sales taxes. So what do? So you have your home. So they raise your property taxes. So finally, the property tax is more than you have in your savings account, and now is a large percentage, 50, 60% of what your home is now worth because everybody's left. So in other words, they rob you of your home. And then, of course, what happens? The homes are abandoned, and you have square miles of once were beautiful residential middle-class neighborhoods that have been turned into a slum.
So how do we stop it?
We stop it by getting the word out to people and showing them what has been done, that the Democrats have sold them a bill of goods. In essence, why do you keep on voting for these people? Look what they've done for you the last 60 years. They haven't done anything for you. They've done the exact opposite. They've destroyed your life. They've destroyed your dreams. They've destroyed your children's dreams. And then to vote for conservative people who believe in the Constitution. And the way is through you, the individual American, through living out your dream. That is the way we all succeed. A large middle class thriving with upward mobility and with getting the government off people's backs. That is the answer.
Very good. Well, so you were in the bond business, I understand.
That is correct.
How did you go from the investment banker business to the cap business?
Well, as a conservative, I've been involved in politics since I was 16. As a matter of fact, the first telephone calls I made was for Ronald Reagan in the 1976 campaign. People forget that Reagan ran for president in 68 and 76.
Yeah.
And yes, against Ford in 80, and then of course in 84, the 2 times when he won. And I've always been involved in politics. Well, I ran an organization that I still run. It's called the U.S. Patriots. And what it is, it's a group of volunteers that knock on doors, get people registered, get out the vote, get them engaged, see if we can persuade them to become the volunteers to do the same. And Originally, we were working for the Ted Cruz campaign in 2016. And when then candidate Donald Trump won Indiana, we switched. So what I wanted to do was to give some of our more engaged volunteers, people who are really out there busting it, knocking on the doors, making the telephone calls, doing all the other things that are needed to get them some MAGA hats, because I figured that would be great for them to be knocking on the doors with the then who was obviously going to be our nominee at that point. So I went to purchase 50 hats, and they were either very expensive, but most of them were not of very good quality, and the ones that were inexpensive were just total junk. So I decided to make my own hats, and I went and I got premium cotton twill caps, and I had "Make America Great Again" embroidered in large letters, and I gave it out to my volunteers. Then people wanted them, so then I started making them. And before you know it, it grew into a big business where now we're helping state and county Republican parties all across the United States raise tens of thousands of dollars in certain counties, some few $100s a month, some $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 a month, and now since we're starting to get the heat of the election season, that's going up even farther. And as everybody knows, politics is local, and this allows them to not only get the volunteers, but also the capital they need to help their local candidates get elected.
Very interesting. So what do you think about what's the biggest problem you think the Republican Party has versus the Democratic Party? You know, the Democratic Party, they seem to be united. They're behind each other. Republicans are like, you know, squabbling all the time. What's your take on that?
Well, as a general rule, Republicans are more independent-minded. They don't have groupthink. They're individuals. So it's more like herding cats. The Republicans, while the Democrats, they focus on groups, and then they feed them a narrative.
So
that in most places is a total fabrication, and they unite around a mantra. You know, like the whole United States is racist, or or it's the president's fault, or whatever. You know, I find it amazing to me how in police precincts that have been controlled by Democrats for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, what happens there has something to do with the president of the United States. It's pretty amazing to me, and that all Americans are racist or things like this. This is what they do. They get around a false premise and demonize people, whether it be the police department or America in general, or the founding fathers.
Yep.
And they unite these people who have a grudge. Then they have big money coming in by interests that want to destroy America and the middle class, because they know a thriving middle class is their enemy. And they have big money come, and they form these organizations. The March for Our Lives, Occupy Wall Street, the Women's March, Black Lives Matter. Now this Antifa people who are nothing but anarchists and terrorists. To give you a general idea, let's take the Women's March, for example. We now have where men are competing in women's sports in college and in high school, taking away girls' opportunity to succeed. I mean, this is insane. Where's the Women's March there? Nowhere. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. You have in Chicago every weekend, anywhere from 50 to 80 people are shot, anywhere from 10 to 20 people are killed. Many of them are children. Where's Black Lives Matter with the not? All of these organizations have one thing in common. They are socialists and progressive leftist progressives who are bent on one thing: destroying the Constitution of the United States. And of course, they're funded by big money, by large multinational corporations and people who want the globalist system and want to destroy the United States. Like you look at the Soros, for example, the Tides Foundation, all these organizations. And that's what it's all about. And what has happened over the years, by compromising with these people, we have sopped the lifeblood of the United States, which is the middle class, destroyed industries, destroyed jobs, and slowly sucked the life out of the United States. This president we have now is trying to restore that. So he is enemy number one of these people, and they will do anything to get rid of our president.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks that want him gone, and not just Democrats. I think there's a lot of Republicans that
Yes.
are after him.
There are a lot of
And,
rhinos who are also at the
yes.
trough, eating out of that trough of the big special interest money. Exactly correct.
How do we get rid of them?
Well, that's up to the voters. They have and people like you and local party chairs have to get them engaged so we can discern who is, and during the primary, a real constitutional conservative and who is to go to get along, drink at the trough and eat at the trough, Republican name only. We call a rhino.
Yep. Well, I have some ideas on how we can do that, but it takes a little bit of effort. And my concern is you don't have, at the state level or at the county level, the interest in doing what needs to be done to solve the problem.
Well, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
That's right.
And today we had our state chair there. How many people do you think we had there? About 350?
I would say about 250 to 300 people at the church.
When has that ever happened?
It's very rare, and it was done by engagement through what you organized by simply putting out a text.
I engage the voters through text, email, voicemail, any way I can figure out how to do it, because I want them involved in the party. I want them involved in the election. I want them to know what's going on. And nobody engages them, and it just drives me nuts.
And that's the thing,
They want to know.
What was interesting at the meeting that we had, where Ronnie Jackson, the Republican candidate for the 13th district up here, and also Colonel Alan West, the chair of the Texas State Republican Party. What was interesting is that in the last mayoral elections for Dallas, Houston, and Austin, and San Antonio, the average number of voters that showed up to the polls for those mayoral elections was 8%. So if we just increase the Republican voter turnout in those elections by even 5 or 6 or 7%, we could have won those races. And these cities wouldn't be being turned into socialist disasters, just like the Democrats have done to other cities. And you see, here's the bottom line. Let's cut to the quick.
Yep.
People who have opportunity and get a good paying job and are out there and able to provide for their family, guess what? They're not susceptible to the crap that the Democrats are peddling. A person with a great job who's making it, guess what? That's a problem for them. They want you beholden to them. So if we start turning these districts around and these cities around and getting people employed, guess what? Their party gets destroyed. That's why the Democrats are slow to open up cities and states across the country. They're slow to open up their business because they thrive on misery. While the Republican Party, on the other thing, they know that their voters, if they're doing well, guess what? They'll vote for them.
Yeah, but if the Republicans are smart, they just open it up and let them. Hell, they can fill their bottles at the bathtub, right?
Well, there you go. I hear you.
So I think it could work against the Democrats.
No, I hear you.
Even though I think you're right.
The more prosperity there is in the country, the worse it is for
prosperity.
Democrats.
Democrats hate prosperity. The people in power. But the voters that don't know any better, they want prosperity, right?
That is correct. But
So
a
how
few
do
of
you
them don't
reckon-
know how that comes about. Some have bought.
I understand
some
that,
have
but I
bought
believe that the voter is smarter than you think.
That's correct.
So
That is
I
correct.
don't think, my thinking is, if the Republicans approach it right, the Democrats are not going to vote in November.
That
They're
could
going to
be.
stay home. Most
Es-
of them. Now,
especially
some
when
of them are going to vote because they want something for free, and they think, hey, if I get this guy in, he's going to give me whatever, $3,000 a month, and I don't have to work. That's how they think.
Well, there's
They
some
have
people
no
that are like that,
concept of where the money comes from.
but the vast majority want freedom. That's what they
I
want.
believe that.
So do I.
I think you're right. I believe that, and I believe that I don't know. I can't prove what the percentage is, but I believe that 85%, 85, let's say 84.9% of the population is logical.
I agree too.
So 15% are nuts, okay? We can't help them. The reason I come up with that number is because that's what I deal with from owning rental property, right? There's some people they're nuts. I can't help them. They're not reasonable. I get them out, okay? I just eliminate the problem. Get rid of them. I can't help them. And let them be a burden to somebody else.
I hear you.
And I think that's pretty consistent with the population. But I think most people are actually reasonable. And I think if they're given the information, they'll look at it and make a decision that's best for them. Is it perfect? Is it the decision you want? No. But it's for them. And to me, it's all about the voter, not the politician. And we forget that.
I hear you.
So I think if the parties would focus on the voter, not the candidate, they'd knock it out of the park.
I agree with you 100%. After all, we the people.
Well, read the preamble to the Constitution.
There you go.
You know,
It's about the
I
people.
challenged a teacher one time when I was in high school. I said, well, I'll just memorize it. He says, no. I'm like, why not? He wouldn't let me memorize it, so I memorized it. I probably still know it. That was 35 years ago.
Yep.
But I wanted to memorize the Constitution. I was fascinated by it. And they like, well, you know, we don't want you really knowing that much about it. Now, looking back, I understand why. But at the time, I'm just a dumb kid, and I thought, okay, I just don't have to do so much homework. But if you were a teacher and you had a kid that wanted to memorize the Constitution, what would you do?
I'd say it's great.
Why
I'd
not?
encourage them. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's nuts. You know,
I may do it now just for fun.
You know, just less
problem's
of some
time.
leftists, and they're afraid that
I'm not very smart, but I can figure it out.
that individual will be lost to, you know, as far as they're
But
concerned.
think of all the fun things we could do with the Constitution. We could have essay contests. We could have all kinds of contests where people competed and got together and had competitions, and it could be a fun deal.
Well, that's the way education used to be, but not anymore.
Well, you're a lot older than I am.
Because the Constitution is the enemy of the establishment and the left.
Now, but think about all the fun things
No,
that
I
kids
know
could do with the
exactly,
Constitution.
but they don't want you to have fun with the Constitution.
Now, who's they when you say that?
I say the leftist
teachers?
progressives, the globalists who want to dumb down society and take away their opportunities.
So how do we get rid of these globalists? Why don't we just get rid of them?
Well,
Sounds pretty simple to
that's
me.
what we're trying to do, and they're trying everything they can right now to stop this president from getting reelected, and also gaining seats in the House and also in the Senate, because they realize unless they retake the Senate or the presidency, that there will be two leftist progressives who are on the Supreme Court, which will be gone in the next 4 years, and they will be replaced. And they desperately want to replace them, because it's come down now where they legislate from the bench, which is insane. I mean, a couple of decisions just recently that Gorsuch, aligned with Roberts on one and Roberts on a bunch of other ones are just crazy.
Well, aren't they the smartest people in the world? I mean, why shouldn't we just go with what they say?
Those people?
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
aren't they smarter than I am?
Well, if
Or you are?
no,
They're
no,
not?
they're not. No, they are not.
That boggles
If I
my
can see
mind.
through them, they're obviously not that smart. So,
But the average person, I think, believes that if it goes to the Supreme Court and they rule, they make a decision. They think that smarter people than they are made the right decision, so they
Not-
don't have to think about it.
not when the decisions.
And you're telling me that I'm wrong.
Well, not when the decisions are just right at the face of them insane. I mean, not when they're
Well, I'm not
insane.
disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, but I'm telling you, here's how people, I believe, think. Because I'm, as a county chair, I get the phone calls. I know how people think. They call me and tell me. And they say, Dan, what do you think about this? Why do you think they did this? And I listen. Most of my time is spent listening to voters who are telling me what they see.
But so,
And the
so I'll ask you. I'll ask you a
don't
question.
get it. The politicians
When they call you,
are oblivious.
so when they call you, what do they say about? Like, we'll give one a recent decision with Roberts
Yep.
upholding DACA, which was
They call me up and madder than a freaking
well.
hornet.
So they're seeing through it.
They're
So in
seeing
other
through
words,
it,
so
and they
then
say, "What in the
they
hell?"
don't believe that
Yeah.
that was correct, and these guys are
and
smarter
they're
than them.
screaming at me.
And
Like
you know
they
what's
think
really
it's my
amazing
fault.
about that one decision that really bothers me more than anything else is they keep on saying that it was an Obama executive order. It wasn't even an Obama executive order. It was a memorandum signed by his Secretary of Homeland Security, which was Janet Napolitano. So they're trying to tell you that a president's executive order can't get rid of a memorandum signed by a cabinet secretary. The whole thing was insane.
Yeah.
And that's why the people, my argument is that the judiciary, in essence, is destroying themselves because the decisions are so insane. The people are starting to realize that these men and women in black robes are not that intelligent, or they're bought off, or they're corrupt, and that's the bottom line.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. As a county chair, I never really wanted a job, and I kind of had to take it so that the party didn't fail here. And I get to be around politicians. I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Most of them, not all of them, are dumber than a box of freaking rocks. It's scary. And that's why I'm talking to people like you to show the voters that we have people that are way more competent than the elected officials, but also to get elected officials to understand that they need to be competent. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's my whole goal. I want to engage the voters and get them to see, hey, I could do that job. I'm just as competent.
That's right.
And I think doing this process will get us competent elected officials over time.
I think that's true. Yes. The more people we get involved, then the more people who are very who are well suited, to become our representatives, the more people we'll be able to get. That because and you talk about incompetence. I think they're very competent at being corrupt. That's what I think
Yep.
about what these politicians
I think
are.
a lot of them are.
And they don't care about the people, and that's what they are.
But to me, it's about the local. And what I'm trying to make people understand is it's about your local county elections. If we can get good people elected locally, everything else falls in place.
I agree with you.
All elections are local. They're not national. They're not statewide. Every election I have to deal with as a county chair. And people do not understand it. They don't understand how the process works. We have to organize that and do the election in the primary. and then in the fall, that's the county's job, with our help. I have to nominate and determine and pick the election judges, the election workers. I have to get them approved. I have to decide who they're going to be. We have to get them approved through the county commissioner's court. There's a lot to it. And they think, oh, well, it just happens. It doesn't just happen. Then we have to find polling places. And we have to do businesses. And we have to disrupt their business for 3 frickin' weeks. It's not easy to do all this stuff. And if you don't have a party or a county chair of your party, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you're out.
I hear you.
Guess what? You lose. And you don't have a Republican nominee. So what people need to understand is that that county chair is extremely important, and that precinct chair is extremely important. Because that's how we get the vote out. You know, we engage the precinct chairs, we get them to know their neighbors. That's it. It's all about knowing your neighbors. You know, I sometimes say that the problem with the Republican Party is air conditioning. It's destroyed it because people now don't know their neighbor.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
used to because they're out on their front porch.
That's true.
But now they drive in, they've got a nice air-conditioned house, they shut the door behind them, they, you know, with all
And
these
they turn on the TV and there's
they
CNN.
walk in and watch Hannity at night or whoever and sit in their easy chair and their wife brings them supper and life is good. But they don't know their neighbor. I think it's a problem.
I hear you.
I think we should ban air conditioning. Maybe we could get the left-wing Lulus to do that.
You mean like it's in the studio right now where it's about 100 degrees?
Yeah,
with,
absolutely.
With
We
95%
don't need air
humidity?
conditioning in here. See, I grew up in Missouri, and I could care less about air conditioning. It doesn't bother me.
There you go.
I think it's I believe air conditioning is a, what do you call it? What do y'all fancy folks call it? You rich people, what do you call it?
Be rich people, air conditioning, you know.
Like it's luxury. That's the word.
Well, it's not.
It's a luxury. To
Everybody
me,
has air conditioning in the United States.
You shouldn't
it's,
have it.
It's a
I just
luxury
think
if
it's
you're in
not.
any other country but the United States. And that's
I
what
just
people
don't
understand.
believe that air conditioning is should be a luxury, but I have to fix it and I have to provide it. So I look.
Thank
at it
goodness
from
for
a little
these
bit
evil
different.
power companies. Electricity is very cheap, so air conditioning doesn't cost. And these terrible corporations
Yeah,
that
but
make
people believe it's a right.
They make efficient air conditioners that don't use up a lot of electricity. And these terrible people that frack and everything that get out this natural gas that's
those
dirt
evil,
cheap
evil
that powers all
frackers,
these
yeah.
electric utilities. Now it's become, you know, it's amazing. Just think about that. Just take air conditioning for an example. People don't realize that before fracking, it was for 1,000 cubic square feet of natural gas, it was $13. Now it's $1.60. Those are all those evil oil companies that the Democrats are trying to get rid of.
You got to get rid of the evil oil companies.
Yeah,
They're
we
just
got to get rid
evil.
of them.
Kind of
right
like
away.
the property
people.
people.
And all these terrible, companies that make these air conditioners, they're so efficient, And who invented it? Where was air conditioning invented? It was invented in the United States. Just all of the convenience that we look at which was created by the free market system, and now the Democrats want to destroy that. I mean, the whole thing's just insane. You look at where the vast majority of medical breakthroughs were occurred in the United States, inventions, the United States. It's just amazing, and all these people just want to destroy this. People who have never really held a real private sector job in their life, except for Ocasio-Cortez, who mixed drinks behind a bar. I mean, it's just pretty amazing to me. And
So she mixed drinks.
yeah, she was a bartender.
She got that mixed up too.
She was a bartender.
I mean,
You know that.
How can't you get that straight?
I don't know. Maybe that's why she went into politics, because she couldn't. So there you go.
I don't know. It just boggles the human mind.
Well, I mean, but the bottom line is, once we look through this, they are hell bent on destroying the greatest system in the world, which is the free market, so they can get political power.
Yeah.
Because they want people to be in misery.
Yeah, they have to have power. And that's what people, I don't think most people get it because they don't own anything. And the scary thing is, if you own something, they're going to take it.
Yeah, that's
And
the
I don't think people understand it. But they ain't taking what I own, and I own a lot of shit. Okay? It's going to come to a head.
I hear you.
And that's what scares me, because I hope we can get it done at the ballot box, but I can tell you 100%, unequivocally, if they come after any West Texas person's property, it ain't going to end well for them.
I hear you.
And I will be there to help them. My middle name is Lee. Start digging, because I'm not going to tolerate it.
I hear you.
And I think a lot of people think the same way. So hopefully we can resolve this at the ballot box.
I think that we'll have a good outcome. I think that on the Republican side, there's a lot of enthusiasm for the president. I hope that our candidates who are conservatives have backbones, the ones that are rhinos. I don't know what you're going to do. The only thing that will bring them around if they realize that the president is gaining steam.
And we won't know until they actually get elected and start performing.
Yeah, and so I know, yeah.
A lot of
as
them are
far
going
as
to be
they're concerned.
rhinos. We take them out in the next election, I
Yeah.
think. And that's what I'm here for.
Okay. Well, good.
And that's why I'm buying your stuff, so we can sell product to get the vote out and help real conservative candidates win.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Anything else, Ron, before you leave?
I think we handled it all. I think we ran the gamut.
All
And
right,
thank
Ron,
you very
I
much
appreciate you
to
coming
be able
by.
to speak to all the people out there.
Yeah, it was great.
Fantastic.
All right.
Boom. And always remember, it's always a MAGA day when I always go to
What's your website?
Oh, it's the THE MAGA MAGA Mall MALL.com. And as I was saying, it's always a MAGA day as long as Donald Trump is in the White House.
Yeah, and if you're in Texas, feel free to go by the GOP wholesale site, gopwholesale.com, and we sell his stuff same price, and we'll work with him to get you the best prices we can. We're just trying to get you the best price we can. So that's what we're all about. Thanks, Ron.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Dan.